If we start by looking back to 2020, we all remember the chaos in Maricopa County in Arizona, and we might be in for part two because on the last day to register to vote, third-party groups dumped nearly 100,000 voter registration forms, which a spokesperson for Maricopa County called it unprecedented. So here to discuss is Matthew Peterson, Blaze News editor-in-chief, and Liz Wheeler. She's the TV host of The Liz Wheeler Show. So Liz, I mean, we look at these last-minute voter dumps in a swing state. What do you see that's suspicious about this?
Well, a couple of things are worth noting, I think, about what's happening in Arizona. First of all, voters' attitudes towards the potential for voter fraud or electioneering, which is rigging the rules before an election, or outright fraud, is very different than it was in 2020. In 2020, people had much more trust in our institutions, much more trust in our election process. They relegated many of us who brought up concerns with election integrity as conspiracy theorists. And I feel no animosity towards people who have since, I'll use the term red-pilled on it, since had their eyes opened, because for a long time we had a lot of faith in our election system. That's not the case anymore. And I don't say this because I'm happy about this. I wish we could have faith in our election system. But I think the things that we see, whether it's the things in the last couple weeks, today, or in the days to come, people are going to be much more willing to look at it for what it is. They're not going to immediately default to trying to explain it away. They're going to say, wait a second, what is happening in Maricopa County is it was 80 to 90,000 voter registrations that were dumped on the county on October 7th. That was supposed to be the last day that voter registrations were accepted. 30 to 40,000 of them were not legible, which is shady to begin with. But the ones that were legible bore names like Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck. That's obviously shady. And I think that that's the difference, though. In 2020, people would have been like, Liz, come on. One said Mickey Mouse. Don't generalize. Today, people are like, oh, that's not good. That's an indication that something bad is happening. Maricopa County should not only behave to a certain standard of election integrity, as should every county. They have a higher standard that they need to meet, in my eyes, because they have violated election integrity in the past. So this is what I have been telling listeners of my show, viewers of my show the last 2 days. Believe your eyes when you see something. And if you see something, say something. The best bulwark against violations of election integrity is us. It's us watching and understanding what's happening and knowing that people cheat in tennis competitions, people cheat in poker competitions, people cheat in fishing competitions. Do you really think human nature is gonna somehow provide this protection against cheating in an election, which is a lot more significant than a chess competition? Mm-hmm. And so I think we look at that and we say, that's a problem. Let's not just look at it and then scroll past on our newsfeed. Let's do something about it.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be key going into the next few weeks of our lives. And certainly here at Blaze, in fact, I'm about to talk to a number of people about a series of articles about the ways you can report these incidents.
That's great.
Elon Musk has on X an entire effort to basically keep track of these things as time goes on, because it very well could turn legal. But let's look what's in front of our face. Like you said, when you see these things, believe them and track them. I think if I was to pull back from all the craziness and try to be the alien from outer space looking at this, the big news right now still is that early on in these key swing states, Democratic vote suppressed. I mean, right? I mean, they're not coming out. The early vote looks good for Republicans. The voting numbers in places like Wisconsin are dragging for the Democratic Party. And that is driving some optimism on the right. So what do you think about that? Do you think there's a chance Trump wins Wisconsin and these other swing states?
Well, listen, I'm like the most cynical person on earth when it comes to this stuff. I think that any kind of optimism, unless it gets you to the polls, risks jinxing our outcome here. And I jest, of course. But yeah, it is really interesting if you look at the numbers. In Pennsylvania, I was looking at the cross tabs today from early voting, and specifically Democrats. Democrats are outpacing Republicans as a percentage of the early vote in Pennsylvania. But if you look at how many early votes were cast by Democrats in 2020, there are almost 750,000 fewer early votes by Democrats cast in Pennsylvania this time compared to 2020. And I know that's like wonky and nerdy to bring up numbers like that, but even as Democrats are bragging, oh, we're leading by almost 20 percentage points in early voting in Pennsylvania, I'm like, yeah, but your base is not enthusiastic. They're not turning out to vote the way that they were in 2020. That's hugely significant, in my opinion.
And we saw the numbers in Iowa come out. The Des Moines Register put out the poll where it had Kamala Harris up 3 points. Meanwhile, Emerson had Donald Trump plus 10. I look at that and I say, okay, every single county in Iowa, I know you saw the list as well, is more red. They're not all red, but they're not as Democratic as they were back in 2020. In 2022, Kim Reynolds was reelected as governor by huge margins. The state of Iowa has become solidly red. So what were they trying to do there on the final weekend?
Yeah, I saw that poll come out over the weekend, and before I'd even looked at the crosstabs or done any research, I was like, okay, I'm sure this is BS because it tracks with history in no way, shape, or form. And that's the thing. It's called a suppression poll, and the purpose of it is to demoralize us and actually to gaslight us. Like, what's the definition of gaslighting? To make you feel crazy about seeing or hearing what you see and hear? Well, that's what they want to do. They want to plant this seed of doubt in our minds, like, are we off? Are we really not seeing this enthusiasm for Donald Trump? Is it really possible that a red state's going to flip for Kamala Harris? Are women really going to go in the voting booth and vote against and keep a secret from their husband? And the answer to that is no. The Emerson poll that you mentioned that shows Donald Trump winning by, what was it, 9?
Yeah.
That tracks with history, both in 2022, 2020, and back in 2016. I mean, I know Trump wasn't on the ballot 2 years ago, but other Republicans were. That's exactly the margin that state has been won by Republicans. There's no evidence that Ann Seltzer, who was the woman who ran this Iowa poll, there's no evidence that she has any information that would lead her to think that there would be, in the senior tab, for example, I'll give you a concrete example. She has a 30-point mind change for women and for men. There's simply no evidence that that's happened. That senior age men would have voted for Republicans by 30 points and then now swing to Kamala Harris. That's completely unrealistic. So I think it's just a suppression poll. Just ignore it.
Yeah. So let's go to the big question. We all have our scenarios, right? I'm not predicting anything, by the way, this time. Sometimes I do, but I'm just saying, look, I spent the last 4 years of my life reorienting everything around really these next few days after I saw what happened in 2020. So I'm here for the ride now, but I think a lot about what the scenarios are, right, that could play out. So if this is close, as people say it will be, if it is disputed, as a lot of people think it will be, and there is no clear winner tomorrow night, what do you think happens?
Yeah, I expect that to happen, by the way. I don't think that we'll know a clear winner by tomorrow night, just given what different states from Wisconsin to Maricopa County, one county in Arizona, have said about delayed election results. But I think that the Democrats will do what Donald Trump should have done in 2020, which is follow down every lead. It's actually going to be almost hilarious to hear them claim election fraud if Kamala Harris loses, but they're going to follow every lead that they possibly can. They're going to litigate it to the very end. They're going to confuse people. And who knows, ultimately Kamala Harris, if Donald Trump wins, she'd be the one to certify the electoral count. What if she did what Donald Trump asked Mike Pence to do, which is to send the electors back to the states, not even to make the decision about the legitimacy of the electors himself, but what if Kamala Harris was in that situation? What I think that they will do, though, is I think before we get to January 6th, 2025, if we don't have election results tomorrow or Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, maybe even in the next couple weeks, I think Joe Biden will resign as president. I think he will step down, coerced, of course, to do so. And I think that there will be an inauguration for Kamala Harris as the first woman president in order to try to use public opinion or popular support or energy to scooch her over that line and ignore the actual results of our votes.
That is fascinating, and that really is something people should
if it's
put in the
neck and
back of
neck.
their head, because right. So
close.
if it's close, this is just one of those maneuvers to put it over the top. And
Yeah, because if it's close, neither side are going to give up. Nobody's going to have any incentive to concede because they think that one win in one court or here or there or some votes invented will push them over the edge. But what if that did for her?
And I was thinking about that the entire time because they need to prove that she can do the job, right? There are so many people out there going, I don't know, right? You see the more that she goes out there in the media, the more they're like, I don't know, can she live up to the role? as president of the United States. But it's going to be fascinating either way. And Liz Wheeler, she's going to be part of our election coverage here tomorrow night. That's why she's in town. And I can't wait to see what happens tomorrow night. And I can't wait to see you back here with us. So thanks for all the time.
Of course. Thanks for having me.